Picture this. You're a Pontiac engineer in 1969, and you've just built the most powerful V8 engine your company has ever laid hands on. Sitting on a stand in front of you, with cylinder heads unlike anything Detroit has ever seen. Intake ports so enormous, the push rods actually run straight through the middle of them just to get out of the way. Breathing air the way a rocket breathes oxygen. And when you test it, when you measure it, the numbers come back at 475 horsepower, a staggering figure for 1969, outflowing a 426 Hemi on the dyno, screaming for a production run, because the Trans Am needs it, the GTO needs it, and American muscle car fans deserve it. And then someone in a suit, sitting in a boardroom far away from your garage, picks up a phone, makes one call, and the whole thing dies. And before this is over, you're going to find out that the engine wasn't just cancelled, it was buried by a chain of catastrophes so bizarre that some engineers still refuse to believe it wasn't deliberate. To understand why this engine's death matters, you have to understand what Pontiac was in 1969. This wasn't just another car division. This was the brand that invented the muscle car. Because back in 1964, a man named John DeLorean slipped a big V8 into a mid-size Pontiac Le Mans and called it the GTO. The suits at GM corporate headquarters were furious because they'd never approved it. But the public went insane for it, and Pontiac became the performance division of General Motors overnight. And by the late 1960s, Pontiac had been developing its Ram Air engine series year after year. Ram Air Y, Ram Air 2, Ram Air 3, Ram Air 4, each one a step up in fury, with the Ram Air 4 alone, rated at 370 gross horsepower, sending Trans Ams and GTOs down the quarter mile in the low 13-second range. And if you knew how Detroit worked back then, you knew that horsepower was never advertised honestly, because the real numbers were always higher. And into this battlefield walked the Ram Air V, the most dangerous weapon any of them had ever built. Here's what made it unlike anything Pontiac had ever built. Inside a normal V8 cylinder head, the push rods and intake ports share the same cramped space. Air has to squeeze around those push rods every single time a valve opens. It's a bottleneck that costs power, and every manufacturer was fighting it. And Pontiac's solution was almost violent in its simplicity, because they made the intake ports so enormous that the push rods could run straight down through the center of them, sealed in little tubes, without blocking airflow at all. More air in, more air out, more power, and on paper, it was genius. The design was called a tunnel port head, and it had been inspired directly by Ford. Because John DeLorean's own brother George was a Ford engineer who had worked on Ford's 427 tunnel port heads and brought the concept to his brother John. And when those Ram Air V heads were finally flow tested, the results were staggering because the intake reportedly outflowed even the legendary 426 Hemi. And 4 versions were planned simultaneously. A 303 cubic inch short deck engine for SCCA Trans Am racing, a 366-inch version for NASCAR, a 400-inch version destined for your showroom in a GTO or Firebird, and a 428-inch monster built purely for drag strips, with the street version expected to produce 475 horsepower in a production GTO, a number that in 1969 was simply obscene and would have redefined what an American muscle car could be. But the man behind the Ram Air V had a secret, and that secret would become the engine's death sentence. Production components were already cast, engines were already being assembled, and then, in a span of weeks, 4 separate disasters struck at the same time. And if any one of them had gone differently, you might have driven one off a dealer lot in 1970. Disaster number 1 was that John DeLorean left Pontiac, because in February of 1969, he was promoted to run Chevrolet. And on paper it was a victory for him, but in practice It ripped the heart out of the Ram Air program, because DeLorean was the man who fought for these engines inside GM's corporate walls. And without him at Pontiac, the protection was gone. And within weeks of his departure, the plug was being discussed at the management level. Disaster number 2 was that the connecting rod supplier went bankrupt. Because the Ram Air V required specialized forged connecting rods, not the kind you grabbed off a standard GM parts shelf, Pontiac had contracted an outside vendor to machine them. That vendor went under before the order could be filled, no rods, no engines, and rather than find another supplier, corporate used it as an excuse to shut the program down entirely. Disaster number 3 was that the SCCA changed its rules. Because the 303-inch engine built specifically to qualify for SCCA Trans Am racing was designed around a 5-liter displacement limit, and before a single race could be run, SCCA officials changed those homologation rules for 1970, allowing larger engines. The entire reason for building the 303 had evaporated overnight. Approximately 25 of them had been assembled, and the rest were quietly shelved. And disaster number 4 was that GM's own boardroom turned cold on performance, because by mid-1969, GM's corporate executives could see the muscle car era starting to crack. Insurance companies were categorizing high-horsepower vehicles as a liability risk, particularly for young buyers. Emissions regulations were tightening in Washington, the market was shifting, and from the 35th floor, a 475 horsepower engine looked a lot less like a product and a lot more like a problem. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Some of those engines didn't get destroyed, they escaped, and one of them is still running today. When the Ram Air V program was killed, General Motors didn't hold a bonfire. The completed engines, somewhere between 80 and 200 units of the 400-inch version, depending on which source you trust, were crated up and quietly sold through the GM parts network to individuals and racing teams. And that means some of them survived, because there is to this day exactly one known production-bodied 1969 Pontiac Trans Am that rolled out of Pontiac's development garage with a Ram Air V already installed under the hood, an engineering mule and test vehicle, and out of 697 total Trans Ams built for 1969, this is the only one with that engine, currently preserved at the Throttle Stop Museum in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. The engine block itself tells the story, because normal production Pontiac engines carry 2 letter codes, but this block carries multiple codes: an engineering order number, a developmental series number, the standard V8 designation, and a stamped numeral 1, believed to be the very first Ram Air V block Pontiac ever built. And the engine still runs, it still drives, and when a technician went through it after acquisition, he found a gel of mixed fluids where the timing chain cover should have been. Decades of dormancy compressed into sludge. They replaced the timing chain cover, flushed the engine, and it fired. And that sound, the sound of an engine that was never supposed to exist running in a garage in Wisconsin, is about as close as most people will ever get to what 1970 was supposed to sound like. But here's the most maddening part of the whole story. The engine may never have worked as a street car anyway, because the tunnel port design that made the Ram Air V such a monster on the high RPM end made it nearly undrivable below 4 RPM. The intake ports were so large that at low speeds, air moved through them too slowly to build proper cylinder pressure. The engine came alive at redline, but getting to redline required patience most daily drivers didn't have. And Ford ran into the exact same problem with their tunnel port 427 and quietly abandoned the design for similar reasons. So whether GM's corporate executives understood this, or whether they used it as convenient cover to kill an engine they feared for other reasons, remains an open question among Pontiac historians to this day.